Brenda, I think you do a good event. And how the hell do you follow these two? I mean, you know, anyway, but of course I will. But I thought I'd start out with a few commonalities, given that we are actually people who share love of books and all those things. So Jared and Nick, I understood a few things about you that I didn't know from our minimal correspondence. Jared, I share with you chickens. Nothing to do with their authentic selves. Actually, I really don't like the expression authentic selves, by the way. It's I'm not a woke person, I don't do that stuff. But anyway, you know, we'll come on to that. But chickens, so the reason I know Rosie is because I moved to New Zealand. There is always some man. I moved in with a man in Hawke's Bay. And he was a celebrated human being, and at one point we decided to acquire a couple of bantam hens. Absolutely gorgeous things they were. They were beautiful black with, you know, iridescent green feathers. They were absolutely lovely, and we adored them for a month before we went away on holiday. And we got back to, if not quite feathers, because someone had kindly cleared them up, but the neighbour's terrier had decided, despite the Bantam Hilton that we had put up for them, that they really actually fancied a piece of our bantams. And so, you know, RIP, that was my only experience with chickens of my own. I've appreciated and admired. I've been to shows where I've actually cuddled chickens, which I've never seen from. But anyway, so part of my style is I'm told that I'm part memoir, part essay, and part self-help. I actually think if you consider Bill Bryson meets Caitlin Moran, you might get where I start from. But anyway, coming back to the shared experiences, so I haven't, you know, I'm a little bit different. I'm older than these two, so, you know, self-publishing is an absolute prerequisite for me because I turned 65 last month. And, you know, what are you going to do? Submit your manuscript to a publisher and hope within 3 years they might reject it? Or self-publish? But I did actually have the common sense of thinking I need a good team around me. So I found a fantastic editor who actually, too much of a story to go into, a publicist and a distributor. So that worked for me. Anyway, I'm still working on how I get it beyond New Zealand. But I think, anyway, what we share is what started me off. I've been writing forever, and I'm going to come back to that. But at one point, after this atrocious relationship where there is always a man melted down, some of my friends in the UK who are writers, you know, journalists and stuff like that, thought, oh God, here we are, we've got a willing subject. And they said, will you write us a few bullet points about what a sort of more mature person feels about a relationship going dead? So I thought, oh, well, okay, yeah, I don't want to do that, I'm miserable, and why should I help you, make you a career where mine's a complete potter? But anyway, so I thought, well, okay, you know, I like you, you know, we've been good friends, we were at university, we've known each other forever. So I gave a few bullet points to a journalist for one of the well-known magazines in the UK, and for the life of me, I can't actually remember which one it was now. She sent one back saying, this is fabulous, I think you're a confessional-style writer. And I actually kind of like that kind of idea because, yeah, I think in a parallel universe I would have been a stand-up comic, but actually I like the confessional-style writer slightly better. So my bullet points, I was encouraged by my bullet points to pick up and say, okay, well, maybe I'll just kind of write this into something else. And the something else became a sort of slightly extended, not quite pity party, but you know, what it feels like, you know, when you suddenly discover you're in your mid-40s and you've moved your country for somebody else for it to go fall to bits. And it was all about me, not about him or, you know, what was going on. And that got published in a book called Finding Mr. Right. And I'm not entirely sure why an anthology about, you know, older women trying to find the Mr. Right could include something like mine, but anyway, it did. It was published, and as Jared said, that was a lovely affirmation for, you know, the power of being able to put things into words. And then comes Nick, and so we just have a little conversation before this. I grew up in the midst of the Scottish Highlands, so I was very influenced in my storytelling by, you know, ghosties and grey ladies and green men and Touch Not the Cat, except with the glove, all the, you know, the myths and legends of the Highlands, which have kind of fed into my storytelling a little bit. But then Nick tells me he went to Aberdeen University, but postgraduate, he actually was based in the village I grew up in. I mean, you know, it doesn't get much more coincidental than that. So I grew up in Kiwi, quite, you know, equidistant between Perth and Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. There was a little ski resort called Aviemore very nearby. Nick spent his time moving from Can You See My Village to Newton Moor that we fought with all the time, another village, and then to Aviemore. This collective place was the Spey Valley. And the Spey Valley is very famous, as probably most of you know, for a whiskey trail. So you think about Tomatin, Glenfiddich, you name it, we had it. I quite like drinking. It's, not really surprising where I got it. And then the bucket fountain's the last thing I'm going to say before I move a little bit on to why I've done what I've done. The bucket fountain, two of my friends are here. I sing with Orpheus Choir Wellington. We occasionally do flash mob type things. We ended up seeing Messiah at the bucket fountain. That did not have any effect on the theme.
Is this another example of Chris's pet?
Yeah.
I find myself thinking about COVID inertia actually while I was talking about it. But no, we'll come back to this if I can think of anything while I'm talking about what I was going to say. But so so this is my first book of my own. I've written lots of other stuff before, but and I've written a professional book. But this is the book of my heart, and it is about a whole series of opinion. But people ask me, and I've been really lucky, I hired a publicist. So Never Succumb Beige is kind of a title that people are going to say why. And so the publicist actually did a very good job because I've had an enormous amount of publicity. But what comes with that are incredible questions from people like Martinborough or other big journalists. They force you to actually think about why you've made that statement. What's the point of it? And as a writer, you just write. You kind of get into it. And you do what you want to do. Anyway, so I've enjoyed the publicity journey because it's actually made me dig deep and think about why I have done what I've been doing. So why Never Succumb to Beige? Well, kind of self-evident. This isn't unusual, but and I'm thinking, but beige. Let's be clear. Beige is not a colour in my mind. Beige is an attitude. And back in the mist of time, when I was still living in London in the mid-90s, I was at a dinner party, and you know how that place after dinner, when you've probably drunk just about enough but not too much. And our host turned around and said, "Okay, guys, we all knew each other quite well. What would you call your autobiography?" And it's a great question because we were in our mid-30s then, and we were full of, absolutely glorious, and you don't tend to think about your autobiography at that time in your life. But so I came up with something lame like Frankie's Follies. We had 2 hysterical hours where we shouted ideas across the table at each other, and we knew each other well enough to shout our ideas down. But I think it was a great question because we don't generally write autobiographies until we're nearly dead. And what's the point then? What we're doing is a retrospective. We're not doing a kind of, future focus. My professional life is creating brands for people, and we do this kind of vision thing. Like it or not, it's quite a good way of anchoring what business might be. And, I don't think enough people have a vision about, a vision about what their lives could be. So I started thinking, 30 years ago, 3 decades ago, I came up with Frankie's Follies. Well, my friends saw me of a cross between Tina Turner and Eleanor Barbara and Virginia Woolf, I think. So that probably suited the moment. But I have changed a little bit since then. And, we go through different phases of our lives, up and down. So, a couple of I've thought about it and I've consistently thought, what would I call my autobiography now? And a couple of the iterations will be chapters in the next book that I'm writing. But eventually I landed on Never Succumb to Beige, because it's actually a sexier way of basically saying, be who you are, do as you would be done by, all those things that are really good advice. I grew up in the 60s, I was born in the late 50s, and that's kind of staunchness about being true to who you are was a very strong sort of North Star that guided you through your life. And I think it's something that I feel quite strongly about, that I feel in a lot of ways we've lost a bit of. But anyway, I really like the idea. So I landed on Never Succumb to Beige. And it was really, it became a personal philosophy, but it also became sort of a call to action. Because it saddens me as a woman who's growing older to see, people, even in their younger times, where they become invisible because they don't meet, they don't tick society's boxes about what they should be. And instead of trying to be more of what they are, they become less because they're trying to be, make themselves into a pretzel shape to fit the box. And so the concept of Never Succumb to Beige was both, what I want to do, what a great epitaph, can you imagine? she never succumbed to beige. But equally, you know, for other people, it's a kind of, you know, hop on the train of many colours, and don't allow society to put you into an invisible box. And that, you know, whether it's work-wise, personally, or anything like that. And, you know, we've all, like, everyone's been up and down in their lives, and my essays, you know, capture quite a lot of my own experiences there, but they also look at, you know, they go through a lot of different, you know, things that I'm interested in, making the points. But I think I felt quite strongly about that, and I hadn't realised how strong a message it is until actually I published this little book, and, you know, people are asking me, what do you mean by that? So, you know, I'm now exploring that idea quite a lot more. I mean, it certainly helps if you actually know a little bit about who you are. That helps, but it's, you know, it's never too late. You mustn't peak too soon. But so I mean, really, it's, you know, it's about wearing your high vis vest with, you know, panache and flair. But it's about having the attitude that allows you to go through your life, not being, you know, in the ebb and flow of everything that comes your way. And I've certainly been that person. You know, I have succumbed to beige. I've allowed myself to be dictated to by, you know, people and things in my life. And I think if you can find your inner compass, Rose is saying no, never beige. But if you can find your inner compass, it gives you a way to actually, you know, stand solid when things don't go right. But anyway, so I've always, you know, I've always felt that it's been something I've felt quite strongly about for a long time, and it's something I really want to try and push more as a message. But the other thing that really captured me while people were asking me about, you know, what, why, how, when, was, so why, you know, what kind of writer are you? What do you write? Why do you write? And I thought, well, okay, that's a good question. And when I was a kid, so full disclosure, when I was a little kid in primary school, I won a poetry writing competition. It was, you know, it had the original title of My Castle on a Cloud. Yeah, I think I sent in a painting with it, so I must have thought about the give to get even then. You know, I'm a brand person, so it possibly weren't then. But maybe I think, you know, I wrote that probably in the mid-60s sometime, and maybe, you know, Les Mis had a famous song with that sort of title in it. So perhaps, you know, perhaps they stole it from me, but everything's derivative, right? But anyway, so having done that, I was quite good at English at school, which accounts for why I then went on to study ancient and medieval history. But so people ask me, what do you write? So I'm an essayist. Where did I learn to write? I learned to write at university, and I could have gone to Aberdeen, most of my schoolmates did, but I actually went to St Andrews.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
So did I.
the place that Kate and Wills hooked up at, but not in my style. But St Andrews was lovely. It was a place to study history. It was, you know, founded in the late 14th century, and it is a spectacular place. But what got me into the whole idea was we had a marvellous professor, Rickman, Geoffrey Rickman. He died in 2010. But he was one of those people that make you want to do something, that make you love a subject. And, you know, I'm sure your students feel like, having listened to you talking, you've got that spark too. But he was the spitting image of the late, great Kenneth Williams. He was Camp 0 of Pink Tents. He wasn't gay, but he was just that person, and he would pack lecture halls. It doesn't matter what the subject was, people would come in, they'd be queuing in the aisles. But he was a wonderful person. He was a leading academic. He set up, you know, an incredible department at St Andrews. But he had the thing, you know, that sort of spark of entertainment about him, which called people and helped them learn. But he was also a very kind human being. I was not doing very well in my first term at St Andrews. We had a lot of these nasty English students that came in who had a different education system. And I was a little bit behind them in what I did. We did many and broad. They did, you know, tall and deep. But so this lovely Professor Rickman turned around after my sort of second seminar with a Kenneth Williams to the, you know, expression on his face. Oh, seriously, it's so bad. And I thought, well, it's not that bad, is it? And he said, it really is that bad. You know, I'm going to fail. This is terrible. I don't fail. I'm not a failure. You know, I was stuck in my school, my tiny, you know, 300-person school in the Highlands in a village of 5,000 or something like that. Anyway, but he was lovely because he said, okay, you've got everything there, but you don't know how to write an essay. You're not doing it properly. So he very sweetly took a couple of sessions out of his time to take a nobody from nowhere and help them understand the art of writing a great essay. And you know, it was something I read his obituary when I was thinking about what I was going to say. And apparently, you know, he was loved by so many people. But he was a great academic. He was modest, but he was also that kind of person who could say, I can see there is something here that I could encourage. How can I encourage it? So I mean, I guess when I say I'm an essayist, I learned at that point that's what I like doing. I love telling stories. So in my life, I've done communications forever and ever. I've done all sorts of things. I've tried. I wrote terrible poetry when my relationship broke up. I've tried writing plays. I've done slightly better. I've published a few things. I did a spoof of The America's Cup about the time of this year. It was a serial. I loved it. It was great. It has some incredible characters in it. But most of all, I came back to it when, like Jared, when the internet or technology-enabled blogging, I started publishing blogs. And then I really realised it was a come to Jesus moment. This is what I really want to do. This is what I was born to do. And it was, you know, that was a really lovely thing because it allowed me to say, okay, here are the things I love doing. I can take a subject and expand on it. And then I can sort of, you know, go down about 1,000 rabbit holes on the way through. And everyone's going, what is this deranged woman talking about? And then I can snap them right back to a conclusion. And I really like doing that. But what I learned from the lovely Professor Rickman is that it's as much about entertaining as it is about writing. And you know, my duty as an essayist is to actually entertain people, whether it's opinion, whether it's funny, whether it's sad, whether it's insane. The main thing is I want to entertain people who read what I do. And so after that, you know, I decided after COVID, I'd gone into a sort of coma of inertia. And I thought, I have to do something, you know, Tempest Fugit, I'm not getting any younger. And so I thought, oh no, I'll write a professional book. And so I spent 2 years, you know, we talked about that. And it absolutely nearly killed me. I mean, you know, I took a full-time job, I worked every minute of every day. But anyway, I got my professional book out, and then I thought, well, I can do another one. But I'm going to do the one I want to write now. I'm going to think all these themes that I've thought up in my blog, I'm going to expand them into proper essays, and I will research them a little, you know, they won't just be disposable, I'll research them a bit more and do a bit more to them. And so I ended up with this book under the title of Never Succumb Beige. And I think that, you know, to me, I've been lucky enough to live quite a rich, colourful life. I haven't achieved everything I want to do, and the rich and colour came with as much pain as gain. But you know, I think when what I have to say to people now is, you know, be true to yourself, stand your ground, don't let people dictate what they want to do. And so my writing is much about, it's not finger pointing. It is, you know, I really do try to entertain. So I find themes that amuse me or move me or in some way engage me intellectually, and then I write a little bit about them. And my idea is that we are a community, we're best, especially in these troubled times, when things are difficult. As we get older, it's not easy to stay visible. And so what I'd love to do is if my writing could in any way inspire people to think differently, feel more confident, feel more colourful, I'd be a very happy person. And so I'm just going to do a very short extract from one of the chapters. My book, it's not the biggest book in the world. A critic once described another book I saw as this slender volume. That was it. But actually, I think you can't equate how much there is with what the intent behind it. Anyway, this is chapter 16. If you can't tone it, tan it. There are quite a lot of chapter headings like that. I blame Coco Chanel. Well, to be fair, I don't blame her for everything. She probably can't be held responsible for Alzheimer's, climate change, or reality TV, Weinstein or Epstein or any of the Steens, Trump, et al. In fact, in many ways, Coco Chanel was entirely admirable. She had a phenomenal impact on women's lives, leading their liberation from the constraints of the corset silhouette, you know that one, to a more sporty, casual look that became the standard of feminine style. There was the classic Chanel suit, the go-anywhere little black dress, oh yeah, and bell-bottom trousers, bobbed hair, turtleneck sweaters, trench coats. It's a lengthy list of firsts. She also made costume jewellery fashionable, for which I will be eternally in her debt. At its peak, the Chanel couture empire employed 3,500. Coco Chanel is the only fashion designer listed on the Times Magazine's list of the 100 most influential people of the 20th century. And her achievements have provided inspiration for aspiring career women and female entrepreneurs over the decades. However, there is no escaping that the ultra-chic and oh-so-famous Chanel must take the blame for at least one thing. And here I'm not talking about all that stuff about her being a collaborateur and shagging influential Nazis during WW2, which somewhat ungilds this otherwise fragrant Lily's legacy. The fact of it seems beyond question from what I've read, but I wasn't there at the time and I don't know the circumstances. Moreover, this year, my New Year's resolution was to become less judgmental. So I'll leave this legendary coutureur's reputation for someone else to cancel and run with my gripe. The crime I'd haul Madame Chanel over the coals for is making the suntan fashionable. And I was just going to stop there. I rant on about a whole lot of things about hibernation and all sorts of things and come back to it, but I really wanted to actually, make an impression of the book. As Nick said, it's really hard for book publishing, bookshops, everything is a hard world to be in. But I think the lovely thing is that there are still people who absolutely adore the written word, and I think that's why we all do it. It's what we're here for. So thank you so much for coming out to support us tonight. And as last on the blocks, never succumb to beige.